My name is Henry. I am 80 years old this year. 6 months ago, I lost my closest friend, Jack. We had known each other for more than half a century, long enough to watch one another grow up, grow old, and pass through most of life's changes together. When Jack passed away, I wasn't just grieving the loss of a friend. It felt as though a part of my own memory disappeared with him. Jack remembered me from my younger days, before life made everything complicated. He knew who I used to be, not just the person I am today. Before I speak about those final days, I want to go back to how a very ordinary friendship began. There was nothing special or dramatic about it. Just two strangers meeting during quiet working days and slowly becoming each other's support for an entire lifetime. I first met Jack in the late 1960s when we were both very young. I was just in my early 20s and had only just started my first job. Jack was in the same place. We worked the same shift, standing next to each other for hours in the factory, each focused on our own task. Neither of us talked much, and neither tried to impress the other. Everything happened quietly. Yet it was that very silence that created a sense of familiarity that was hard to explain. From those ordinary working days, a slow bond began to form, one I didn't even notice at the time. One afternoon after work, when the shift ended like any other day, Jack suddenly asked if I wanted to go for a beer. There was no special reason, no formal invitation. I nodded out of habit. We sat in a small bar talking about simple things, work, life, and the fact that neither of us knew where we were headed. No one tried to impress the other. But from that ordinary evening on, we began to see each other more often. Our conversations grew longer and slowly turned into a habit. I didn't realize then that this simple moment had quietly opened the door to a friendship, steady, unspoken, and lasting for decades. From those modest meetings, our lives gradually moved into the familiar stages of adulthood. Jack and I got married, settled into stable jobs, and learned how to carry responsibility. Children were born. Life grew busier. Yet we stayed in regular contact. There wasn't always something to talk about. Sometimes it was just a shared dinner, a game of cards, or a few minutes sitting together after a long day. Those very ordinary moments kept us close. No promises, no effort. Just showing up at the right time was enough to let that friendship endure through the years. Over time, I came to understand that the greatest value of my friendship with Jack didn't lie in memorable events or special moments. We didn't need long trips or big stories to feel close. What kept us together through so many years was simple, steady presence. There were days when there was nothing to say, and just sitting beside each other in silence was enough. We never had to prove anything to one another, and we never had to become better versions of ourselves to be accepted. Jack knew who I was, with all my flaws and fatigue, and I understood him in the same way. That ease of being fully ourselves made our friendship stronger than any promise ever could. As time went on, our jobs changed and life carried us in different directions. Jack moved into a new line of work, and I was no longer at the old place either. We didn't see each other as often as before, no longer standing side by side all day. But the friendship didn't fade. We stayed connected through familiar routines, short phone calls to check in, weekend dinners, sometimes just a few minutes of conversation with nothing important to discuss. That simple consistency kept us close, even as life grew busier and the distance between us slowly increased.
During the hardest periods of our lives, Jack and I were always there for each other in a very quiet way. When someone close to me passed away, Jack didn't try to comfort me with empty words. He simply came, sat beside me, and stayed long enough so I wouldn't feel alone. A few years later, when Jack's son went through a major crisis, I was the one who stood by him. We didn't need to say much. Sometimes, silence is the clearest way to share pain. Just knowing that someone understands your hurt without questions or explanations is enough to get through those heavy days. It was in moments like these that I understood true friendship doesn't need noise. It only needs presence at the right time.
As I entered old age, I gradually came to understand that true friendship is not just about joyful moments or shared laughter. It is the ability to stay with one another when life becomes its heaviest. Those years taught me that happiness can come and go, but presence during hardship is what truly lasts. Jack never needed to do anything grand to prove his friendship. He simply showed up when I was at my weakest, and I did the same for him. It was walking through difficult seasons together, without explanations or promises, that made our friendship an essential part of my life. After my wife passed away, my life fell into an emptiness that was hard to name. I stopped going out and no longer wanted to see anyone. The days passed quietly, and I slowly grew used to being alone for far too long. It was during that period that Jack became my only emotional anchor. He didn't ask many questions, and he never pressured me to feel better. Jack simply came regularly, bringing a simple meal, sitting beside me in silence, and gently inviting me outside when he sensed I was beginning to close myself off. Day after day, he showed up with patience, making sure I didn't become isolated inside my own grief. Because of Jack, I learned how to keep living again when everything felt as though it had stopped. When it was Jack's turn to lose his life partner, I became the one who stayed closer to him. I understood that sense of emptiness all too well, because I had lived through it myself. I didn't try to say anything comforting. I simply came, sat beside him, and stayed long enough so he wouldn't have to face his sorrow alone. After that loss, we began seeing each other more often. Familiar breakfasts, conversations without any clear topic, slowly became our new rhythm of life. That quiet regularity helped both of us keep moving forward, even as each day passed more slowly than before. Then Jack's health began to fail, and his memory was no longer what it once was. Some days he recognized me the moment I walked through the door. Other days his eyes wandered, as if searching for someone else. I continued to visit regularly, not to be recognized, and not to hear words of gratitude. I came because that was what I had chosen to do for a friend. Whether Jack remembered me or not no longer mattered. What mattered was that he was not alone in his final days. To me, friendship is sometimes as simple as staying until you can no longer stay anymore. After Jack passed away, I finally understood that friendship is something we should never take for granted. For many years, I believed we would always be there for each other, that there was still plenty of time ahead. But time waits for no one. When Jack was gone, I realized that some people cannot be replaced, and some bonds cannot be started over. What remains are not the big memories, but the moments when we showed up at the right time. If there is one thing I want to say, it is this: cherish the relationships that truly matter while you still can. Show up, even when you don't know what to say. Because one day, the most precious thing left
may be the memory of whether you were there or not.
If this story made you slow down, even just a little, leave a comment, share it with someone you're thinking of, and subscribe to the channel so we can meet again.